I'm allowing about 1 minute for people to arrive. So. But no longer than that. So those of you who have arrived on time will be rewarded very shortly. Okay, let's make a start. Welcome to everybody to the first, hopefully of many, international conferences of the International Institute for Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal. My name's Professor John Reid. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work at the University of East London. And my role in all of this is largely as a researcher, rather than someone who's been through the experience or someone who does a lot of work helping people to come off. But we have the board and the institute is a nice mixture of those three types of people. So we know that there's at least 400 of you out there, which is wonderful. We know that you're from 25 countries at least, and we have people from every continent on the planet. So that's a good reason to thank the organizers. Thank all of you for being here, but to thank the organizers, in particular, our administrator, Lucy, who's been working tirelessly. Those of you who have never organized a conference have no idea how much hard work it is. So great thanks to Lucy. And also to Ordur, Rex, and there's Lucy. Hi, Lucy, hiding behind the logo there. To Ordur, Rex, and Rafaela, who had been organizing this conference to take place in Iceland, which was the original plan. We had to postpone that twice for obvious reasons. It was going to be a face-to-face conference. We very much hope and expect that we will be able to meet in Iceland next year. And we also hope that we'll be able to have these conferences either face-to-face or online, or both on an annual basis. So I'm currently chair of the Institute, so it's my job to sort of kick us off, and I'm going to just take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the concept of withdrawal. What do we mean? What are we talking about? Why do we need an institute at all? A little bit about the institute, and then a couple of housekeeping points. And then we're going to kick off with the first of our wonderful speakers, Karina. So, withdrawal. We're talking about, first of all, we're talking about psychiatric drugs specifically, and by that we mean antidepressants, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, etc. We know that until quite recently, the extent of the numbers of people struggling to come off these drugs when they decide to reduce or withdraw has been wildly underestimated, except for benzodiazepines. We have known about that for many, many years, but it's more recently that we've understood how many people struggle with antidepressants, and the large surveys that have been done are showing that just over half of people, when they try to come off antidepressants, will experience some sort of withdrawal effects. And about half of those report those withdrawal effects as severe. And given that we're in England alone, 1 in 6 people are currently being prescribed antidepressants, we are quite literally talking about millions of people around the world as we speak, struggling to come off and experience a whole range of withdrawal effects, which we will get into in more detail as we go through the 2 days. We also know that there's little professional support for people as they go through this process. One of our goals, of course, is to change that and to increase the understanding of professionals and their role. And people come off also with very little accurate information. So currently, people are largely supporting one another via online groups and so forth. So a little bit about the Institute, which is trying to sort of fill that gap and meet those needs to a certain extent as best we can. We've going for 6 years now. We started in 2016. We're very much the if Karina won't mind me saying so, I think of Karina as the mother and Bob Whitaker as the father of the organization. Certainly Karina and Håkansson and Bob Whitaker, who brought us together for our first gathering back in 2016 in Gothenburg. I think it was a couple of hundred of us, and that was where the Institute was formed. We've developed 4 goals. One is to develop research which facilitates and supports safe withdrawal. The second is to contribute to the safe and evidence-based reduction and withdrawal in the real world. The third is to support the human right to informed consent in relation to psychiatric drugs. We think that's a very important principle. And finally, we try to promote practices that help prescribers, family and friends to support people to safely reduce and withdraw. Since our launch back in 2016, we've managed to do a few things which we're quite proud of. Initially, we were running small training programs face-to-face at that point. Not at the moment, of course. We had an international network meeting in 2019, again in Gothenburg, with 40 international experts meeting to discuss ways to implement our goals. We contribute on a regular basis to national guidelines whenever they're being reviewed to try and get them up to date and accurate, such as the NICE guidelines here in England and the European guidelines. We actually had quite a significant impact on the current European guidelines. We have an ongoing website which gathers together resources and information. We have produced a training video which you're going to see in just 2 or 3 hours at the end of today's session, which we're very, very proud of. And one of our other accomplishments, and it actually was an accomplishment, was to move from Sweden to the UK. And that's absorbed a lot of our time trying to open bank accounts. And so we are now officially we're international, but we're based in Britain. And that has absorbed a lot of our time. So how can you participate in the next couple of days? With several ways. One is with the chat will be open throughout, so you can chat with one another in an open way or chat to an individual participant. You can ask questions of the speakers, not directly, I'm afraid, but if you enter a question into the question and answer box, the Q&A box, as many as possible of those questions, and obviously won't be all of them, will be selected by the chair of that session and put to the speaker. And each speaker will be leaving about 10-15 minutes for questions. Also, at the end of the session tomorrow, at the end of the whole afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are, there is an open discussion where we can actually meet face-to-face, which is likely to be somewhat chaotic because there's so many of us, but that's the nature of the beast. And at that point, we'll be discussing ways forward, how to implement some of the things that we think are important, how to improve practice, and you might have ideas about how to do that. You might have experiences about how you have accomplished that in your part of the world. So we'd be keen to hear all of that. I've probably missed some things out, but I think I'm just looking at my little list here. Oh yes, I do need to thank the rest of our board, which is Olga Ronseman from Denmark, Swapnil Gupta from the USA, Ruth Cooper, who you're going to meet in a minute, who you can actually see already on your screen. There's Ruth. Stevie Brown, who you're going to hear in the video, and Cleo Yiannikopoulou, who you will also meet at some point during the 2 days, who is our treasurer and who is based in Greece. So we really are an international group, and we are, as I say, a mixture of researchers, clinicians, therapists, people who have been through experience themselves, and some people wear more than one hat in regards to those various categories. Okay, so it's my one last thing. When it comes to questions, we're not going to be able to take sort of individual questions about individual situations, because we're not really in a position to give medical advice or advice of any kind to specific people about their particular situation. But most questions like that can be turned into a general sort of a question. But so we won't be selecting questions that ask for specific advice about yourself or a loved one. I hope you'll understand why it's not okay for us to do that with 400 people listening and so forth. Okay, well, it's my great pleasure to kick us off, I'm going to hand over to Ruth Cooper, who is a member of the board, to introduce Karina. Over to you, Ruth.